The corporate retreat promised a break from the monotony of my daily life. I had been looking forward to this trip for weeks, imagining the chance to escape the confines of my dull marriage. The rustic lodge nestled on an isolated island felt like a breath of fresh air. As I stepped into the lobby, the smell of pine and salt water enveloped me, momentarily lifting the weight off my shoulders. Colleagues mingled around, laughter echoing off the wooden beams, but I felt a pang of isolation amidst the chatter. I wandered outside, seeking solace by the beach cove where soft sand met crashing waves. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over everything. I watched as couples strolled hand in hand, their joy starkly contrasting with my own sense of entrapment. My husband had become increasingly distant, lost in his own world and oblivious to my growing dissatisfaction. As I stood there, I couldn't help but feel a yearning for something more, something that sparked excitement rather than routine. While exploring the paths winding through the trees, I stumbled upon a group gathered near a fire pit. Among them was Jake, my boss's son. He had always been charming and confident, but today he seemed different, more approachable somehow. We exchanged pleasantries as he tossed another log onto the fire. His smile held an allure that drew me in, igniting an unexpected spark within me. I felt alive in his presence, momentarily forgetting my mundane reality. As we chatted about our work and lives back home, I overheard snippets of conversation from nearby attendees discussing their own affairs and escapades during retreats like this one. The words hung in the air like an unspoken invitation to explore possibilities beyond my current existence. Could it be that others felt just as trapped? Just as desperate for change? My heart raced with curiosity and apprehension at what this weekend might hold. The sky darkened abruptly as storm clouds rolled in without warning. A sudden gust of wind sent leaves swirling around us, then rain began to pour down in sheets. We all rushed back inside the lodge for shelter, laughter turning into frantic shouts as we tried to avoid getting drenched. But amidst the chaos, I found myself standing next to Jake again, our eyes locking for just a moment longer than necessary. "Looks like we're stuck here for a while," he said with a half-smile that made my pulse quicken. I nodded, feeling both nervous and exhilarated at being so close to him while knowing my life was waiting outside those walls, a life filled with obligations and expectations that suffocated me daily. As thunder rumbled overhead and lightning lit up the sky outside, an idea formed in my mind. Perhaps this retreat could be more than just an escape. Perhaps it could be a turning point that led me toward something exhilarating and new. But before I could act on those thoughts fully, another colleague burst into the room with news that dinner would be served soon. My stomach sank at the thought of returning to routine discussions over stale bread and corporate jargon while feeling this newfound energy coursing through me. Yet as everyone began to shuffle toward the dining area, Jake caught my eye again across the room. His expression hinted at unspoken possibilities waiting just beneath the surface. The storm raged outside while we settled into our seats at long tables adorned with flickering candles, an atmosphere perfect for secrets and whispers among colleagues eager to unwind after long hours of work meetings earlier that day. But even as conversations flowed around us about quarterly earnings and team dynamics, part of me remained focused on Jake's presence nearby, the way he leaned forward slightly when speaking or how his laugh seemed genuine amidst all our pretenses. Dinner dragged on longer than expected due to prolonged discussions about upcoming projects. Each passing minute felt like an eternity as anticipation built within me alongside uncertainty about what would come next. Then came dessert, chocolate mousse served with fresh berries, a sweet treat meant to indulge us after our meal, but all I could think about was how much sweeter it would be if shared privately away from prying eyes. Just then, a loud clap of thunder shook through us all. It startled everyone momentarily before laughter erupted again over shared nerves regarding weather forecasts predicting severe storms overnight. But beneath those chuckles lay tension simmering just below surface. an electric charge between Jake and me growing more palpable by each second spent together under watchful gazes from colleagues unaware of what might unfold when darkness enveloped us completely later tonight. As dinner concluded amid chatter fading into background noise behind closed doors leading out onto balcony overlooking crashing waves below, I made up my mind. Tomorrow would bring choices. Tonight held potential waiting patiently within shadows cast by flickering lights illuminating paths yet unexplored. I stepped outside, the cool night air wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore provided a soothing backdrop as I walked deeper into the darkness, my mind racing with thoughts of Jake. I needed to clear my head, but it was hard to ignore the pull I felt toward him. Suddenly, I spotted him leaning against a wooden railing, gazing at the sea. He turned as I approached, a smile breaking across his face. "I was hoping you'd come out," he said softly. My heart raced at his words, and for a moment everything else faded away. "I needed some air," I replied, trying to sound casual. But my pulse quickened as he stepped closer, his presence both comforting and electrifying. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "I'm just tired," I admitted. "Tired of pretending." The honesty hung in the air between us like an unspoken promise. He nodded, understanding etched on his features. "Let's not pretend tonight," he said quietly. In that moment, something shifted between us. Our eyes locked, and without thinking, we leaned in closer until our lips met for the briefest moment, nos besamos. It was innocent yet charged with undeniable desire. Before I could process what had happened, a voice interrupted us from behind. "What are you two doing?" It was Karen from accounting, her expression skeptical as she stood at the entrance to the balcony. My heart sank. We'd been caught in a moment that should have remained ours alone. "Just talking," Jake responded smoothly, stepping back slightly to create distance between us. I felt heat rise to my cheeks as Karen raised an eyebrow but decided to let it go for now. "Dinner's over, they're calling everyone back inside," she said before turning away. As she walked back into the lodge, I could feel Jake's gaze on me, intense and filled with unspoken questions. "We should go back," I urged, feeling anxious about being discovered further. But part of me wanted to linger in this newfound connection with him, even if it felt reckless. "Just one more minute," he insisted gently. "I want to know you better." His words sent shivers down my spine as we stood there in silence once more. Eventually, we returned inside together but kept our distance from each other during dessert. The atmosphere buzzed with laughter and chatter while my thoughts remained consumed by what had just happened outside. Later that night, after everyone had retired to their rooms, sleep eluded me completely as images of Jake filled my mind, his smile and those moments we shared replaying like a movie on repeat. The next morning came too soon. Sunlight streamed through my window as I lay awake contemplating what had transpired between us. Did last night mean something? Or was it merely an impulsive act driven by our circumstances? I decided a walk would help clear my head again and slipped out before anyone else stirred awake. The path leading down toward the beach was lined with tall palm trees swaying gently in the breeze, a picturesque scene that seemed almost surreal considering how complicated everything felt within me. As I reached the shoreline where soft sand met crashing waves below me, a sense of calm washed over me momentarily until memories flooded back, the kiss lingering on my lips still fresh despite its brevity. Then from behind me came footsteps crunching along the gravel path leading toward me. It was Jake again, this time dressed casually in shorts and a t-shirt that hugged his frame just right against sun-kissed skin. "Mind if I join you?" he asked with an easy grin that made my heart flutter again despite myself. "No, not at all," I replied quickly before turning back toward the ocean's horizon stretching endlessly before us both, an escape waiting beyond every wave crashing onto shore. We walked side by side in comfortable silence for several moments until finally stopping at an isolated cove where rocky cliffs jutted out into deep blue waters below us. a perfect spot away from prying eyes where secrets could be shared freely without fear of judgment or discovery lurking nearby. "I've thought about last night," Jake said, suddenly breaking through silence like thunder rumbling overhead unexpectedly during summer storms, a reminder of how unpredictable life could be sometimes too. "So have I admitted cautiously while glancing sideways at him, nervously unsure how far this conversation would lead us now, given everything hanging precariously above our heads like dark clouds threatening rain any minute. Then he took a deep breath before continuing, "You know, we could explore this island together today if you're up for it." His suggestion caught me off guard yet ignited excitement within me simultaneously, an adventure beckoning just beyond reach, waiting patiently underneath layers upon layers woven intricately throughout lives lived separately until now. "I'd love that," I replied eagerly, feeling anticipation building inside like bubbles rising up through champagne flutes ready to overflow any second now. But just then my phone buzzed loudly, interrupting our moment. Glancing down revealed an incoming call from Mark, my husband's name flashing ominously across screen, reminding me harshly reality awaited just around corner, always lurking nearby, casting shadows wherever light dared shine brightly. "What is it?" Jake asked curiously, watching me intently as uncertainty clouded my expression, instantly shifting focus away from him toward weight pressing heavily upon chest instead. "I need to take this," I said reluctantly, stepping aside, feeling torn between two worlds colliding violently together, threatening chaos everywhere they touched, leaving no room left untouched anymore either way. As Mark's voice crackled through speaker demanding answers regarding whereabouts during retreat weekend, I felt panic rising within, once more threatening everything built between us so far, already fragile enough without added pressure weighing heavily upon shoulders too. Jake watched silently, waiting patiently while tension thickened air around us both, creating distance even though proximity remained close, physically still, emotionally miles apart, somehow always drifting further away each time something unexpected occurred, pulling hearts apart once more. "I'll be right back," I promised briefly before walking away, unable shake, feeling dread creeping closer, every step taken forward leaving unknown consequences behind, lingering ominously, still hidden beneath surface, waiting patiently, ready strike when least expected next time around too. I turned away from Jake, my heart racing as I walked along the secluded path lined with palm trees. The retreat felt both liberating and suffocating, a strange juxtaposition that left me disoriented. I needed to escape the weight of my choices, if only for a moment. My mind was a tumult of guilt and desire, each thought battling for dominance. As I strolled closer to the beach, I spotted the boss's son sitting on a weathered log, gazing out at the waves. He looked up as I approached, a smile breaking through the tension that had enveloped us earlier. "I was hoping you'd come," he said softly. The warmth in his voice eased some of my anxiety. "We need to be careful," I warned, glancing around to ensure no one was watching us. The thrill of secrecy hung in the air between us, but so did the weight of my marriage vows. "What if someone sees us?" Jake's son shrugged slightly, his carefree demeanor contrasting sharply with my internal turmoil. "Let's just enjoy this moment," he replied, his eyes sparkling with mischief. I hesitated but felt an undeniable pull towards him. We wandered along the shoreline, our footsteps leaving temporary imprints in the sand that would soon wash away with the tide. As we talked about our lives, his dreams and my disappointments, I felt a connection forming between us that was both exhilarating and terrifying. It was then that our lips met. It felt like a spark igniting something dormant within me. "I can't believe we just did that," I murmured after we pulled apart, breathless and surprised by my own boldness. "Neither can I," he admitted with a grin that made my heart flutter again. But as we continued walking, shadows of doubt crept back into my mind. Was this truly what I wanted? As we explored further along the beach, something caught my eye in my bag, a faded photograph peeking out from beneath a stack of papers. Curiosity piqued, I pulled it out to find an old picture of my husband and me from years ago when life felt simpler and happier. "Is everything okay?" Jake's son asked, noticing my sudden stillness. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile while feeling a pang of nostalgia mixed with regret. Just an old memory. Before I could dwell on it more deeply, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket like an alarm bell ringing through the tranquility of our surroundings. Reluctantly, I glanced at the screen and saw my husband's name flashing ominously. "Lily? Where are you?" His voice crackled through the line, filled with suspicion and concern. "I'm just taking a walk by the beach," I replied quickly, trying to keep my tone light while panic surged within me. "Are you alone?" he pressed further. "Yes," I lied smoothly despite feeling Jake's son watching me closely. The tension in his gaze mirrored what I felt inside, a growing fear of being caught in this web of lies. After ending the call, Jake's son raised an eyebrow at me knowingly. "You should probably go back soon." I nodded reluctantly but couldn't shake off how thrilling it had been to share those moments together, yet how precarious they were too. We turned back toward where our colleagues were gathered near the lodge. Laughter echoed faintly in the distance as they prepared for dinner together. Once inside the retreat center's rustic lodge again, everything seemed amplified. The chatter from coworkers sounded louder than ever against the backdrop of nature outside. My heart raced as we entered. Every glance exchanged felt loaded with unspoken words and secrets waiting to spill over. As dinner progressed under twinkling lights strung across wooden beams outside on the patio area overlooking crashing waves below us, the atmosphere shifted slightly when Jake's father arrived unexpectedly early from his meeting elsewhere on site. "Lily. There you are," he called out jovially before spotting his son beside me. A flicker of confusion crossed his face before he smiled again warmly at both of us without suspicion lingering too long thankfully, but still enough for me to feel uneasy about being found out somehow later down this road ahead. "Just enjoying some fresh air," I replied too quickly while trying not to meet anyone's gaze too long lest they see right through all these layers built up around myself lately, each one hiding deeper truths beneath surface-level interactions shared among colleagues here tonight. The evening dragged on with small talk filling spaces where deeper conversations might have thrived instead if only circumstances allowed them freely without fear looming overhead constantly threatening exposure at any moment now. Finally excusing myself under pretense needing another drink, I slipped away into shadows behind bar area where nobody could see me anymore, not even him. I leaned against cool counter feeling conflicted about everything happening lately, wondering if this path chosen led somewhere worth all risks taken thus far or merely leading directly towards inevitable disaster waiting patiently around corner just ahead. I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me as I stepped back into the dim light of the lodge. The laughter from the dining area echoed faintly, a reminder of the group dinner that awaited us all. I had to find him before we were swept back into the crowd. As I made my way through the rustic hall, I spotted him leaning casually against a wooden beam, his eyes scanning the room. The moment our gazes met, something shifted between us. He pushed off from the beam and approached me with a grin that made my heart race. "I was hoping you'd come," he said softly. "I need to talk," I replied, glancing around nervously. "This can't go on like this." He nodded, his expression turning serious. "I know. But there's something you should know." My stomach dropped at his tone. "I have a girlfriend back home." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, darkening my thoughts. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I felt betrayed yet drawn to him all at once. We kissed. I reminded myself of that moment earlier in our secret world, but now it felt tainted. "We're not just playing around," he insisted, stepping closer. "But this feels real." We shared a deep moment then, where time seemed to stand still. In that instant, everything else faded away. Just as our lips brushed again, softly this time, the sound of clinking glasses and chatter grew louder outside, signaling dinner was about to start. Panic surged through me. We couldn't be seen together like this. "We need to go," I whispered urgently. He hesitated for a moment but then nodded in agreement. As we slipped out of sight behind a large potted plant, we heard someone call out his name from across the room. My heart raced as I recognized the voice. It was his father, my boss. "Where are you?" His father's tone was sharp and demanding, cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. "We have to move," he urged quietly, pulling me further into the shadows just as his father rounded the corner. My pulse quickened as we pressed ourselves against the wall, hidden from view. Once it was clear again, he turned to me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Let's just take this one step at a time," he said firmly but gently. I nodded reluctantly, knowing that every step felt like walking on thin ice, dangerous and precarious. As we rejoined our colleagues at dinner moments later, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. The table buzzed with chatter about work projects and vacation plans while I stole glances at him across the table. Each time our eyes met, it sent shivers down my spine. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. Then came whispers about my boss's recent troubles. A rumor about an affair had surfaced among some employees seated nearby. Their voices carried over plates filled with food. "Did you hear? He's been acting strange lately." I leaned in slightly closer to catch snippets of conversation while trying to keep my demeanor casual. "They say it's someone from corporate." My phone buzzed on my lap, a text message from my husband asking where I was and why I hadn't called yet tonight after promising earlier in day to check in during retreat activities. Anxiety crept in as I glanced at my watch. Dinner would be over soon and everyone would be looking for their partners or friends afterward. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly when he noticed my sudden change in expression. "No," I whispered back urgently as another colleague leaned closer to hear better what was being said about my boss, his son shifting uncomfortably beside me, now too aware of how close we were sitting together amidst prying eyes. A sudden announcement cut through our conversation. "Dinner is over. Let's gather for drinks by the fire pit." My heart sank again. This would only increase chances of being seen together without cover any more than before, the stakes rising higher with every passing minute spent under scrutiny from others around us who might notice something amiss between us both if they paid attention closely enough. The night unfolded around us like a tangled web. One misstep could unravel everything we'd built so far during this retreat into chaos. The group dinner felt more like a prison sentence than a celebration. I sat at the long table, surrounded by colleagues who chatted animatedly, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing inside me. My eyes darted around the room, searching for a glimpse of the boss's son. Each moment that passed without him felt heavier, like an anchor dragging me deeper into my own discontent. As I picked at my food, snippets of conversation floated my way. I overheard two colleagues gossiping about the boss. "Did you hear he's been spending a lot of time with that new client?" one whispered, her voice dripping with intrigue. "I wouldn't be surprised if he was up to something." The words struck me like lightning, igniting a flicker of unease. Was my boss capable of infidelity? The thought made my own secrets feel even more perilous. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table, vibrating against the wood. I glanced down and saw a text from my husband. "Where are you?" "It's late." Panic surged through me, tightening my chest. I quickly typed back a vague response about being at dinner but felt the weight of his suspicion pressing down on me. Would he ever understand how trapped I felt in our marriage? Looking up from my phone, I caught sight of the boss scanning the room. His expression was tense as he searched for his son among the guests. Anxiety twisted in my stomach. If he found out about us before we could figure things out, everything would implode. My heart raced as I considered slipping away to find him before it was too late. "Excuse me," I murmured to the colleague next to me and stood up abruptly. The laughter and chatter faded behind me as I made my way toward the exit, weaving through clusters of people lost in their conversations. Outside, the cool air hit me like a wave of clarity. This was no longer just about fleeting moments, it was about making choices. I hurried down the dimly lit path leading to our cabins, hoping to find him waiting somewhere in the shadows. As I approached his cabin door, uncertainty gripped me again. What if he wasn't there? What if he had decided it was too risky? Just as I raised my hand to knock, I heard footsteps behind me. Turning around quickly, I found myself face to face with one of our colleagues who had likely been looking for me after noticing my absence at dinner. "Hey. Everything okay?" she asked with genuine concern etched across her face. "Just needed some fresh air," I replied hastily, trying to sound casual while feeling anything but calm inside. She nodded slowly but didn't seem convinced. "You know they're looking for you," she added before turning back toward the dining area. I held my breath until she disappeared around the corner and then knocked softly on his door. Moments later, it swung open to reveal him standing there with an anxious expression that mirrored mine. "I thought you wouldn't come," he said softly, stepping aside to let me enter. "I had to." The words tumbled out before fear could stifle them again. We stood close together in the small space as tension filled every inch between us. "But we can't stay hidden forever." He nodded solemnly but didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached for my hand and pulled me closer until our bodies were nearly touching, a comforting warmth in this whirlwind of uncertainty. "Lily," he began hesitantly, "I know this is complicated, but..." Before he could finish his thought, there was a loud knock on the door that sent both of us jumping apart instinctively. "Hey. You guys in there?" It was another colleague's voice ringing out from outside, clearly looking for us both after noticing our absence from dinner again. "We'll be right there." I called back quickly while exchanging a panicked glance with him over how dangerously close we were to being discovered. He sighed heavily and ran a hand through his hair in frustration while stepping away from me reluctantly as if putting distance between us could save us from exposure. "We need to talk later," he said urgently before opening the door slightly ajar just enough for them not to suspect anything unusual happening inside. As they entered and began chatting about mundane topics like breakfast plans for tomorrow's early meeting ahead of departure day looming closer than ever, I couldn't shake off how precarious our situation had become amidst these seemingly harmless moments together now tainted by fear lurking just beneath surface-level interactions around us all. The rest of dinner passed by in a blur, laughter echoed around us while anxiety tightened its grip on my heart like an iron vice, the stakes rising higher with each passing minute spent under scrutiny from those who might notice something amiss between us both if they paid attention closely enough. I slipped away from the dining area, my heart racing as I sought out the boss's son. The night air was thick with tension, and I felt the weight of every gaze following me. My colleagues were still mingling, oblivious to my inner turmoil. With each step toward our secret meeting spot, I could hear laughter and clinking glasses behind me, but all I could focus on was the chance to be with him again. When I found him, he leaned against a weathered tree, his expression a mix of relief and concern. "I was starting to think you wouldn't come," he said softly, glancing over his shoulder as if worried someone might follow. "I had to escape," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "This dinner feels like a trap." We stood close together, the world around us fading into nothingness as we confessed our feelings. It felt liberating to speak openly for once. "I never expected this," he admitted. "But it's real." In that moment, everything else faded away, my mundane life, my husband's suspicions, until reality crashed back in when I heard footsteps approaching. My heart dropped as I turned to see one of our colleagues heading toward us. "Hey. There you are," she called out cheerfully, clearly unaware of how close we were standing. Panic surged through me as I exchanged a quick glance with him before stepping back into the shadows of the trees. "Just catching some fresh air," I managed to say with a forced smile while trying to keep my composure. She raised an eyebrow but seemed satisfied with my answer. "You should join us again, they're talking about next quarter's projects." As she walked away, I felt relief wash over me but also a sense of dread about how close we had come to being caught. "What now?" he asked quietly, concern etched on his face. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of our situation pressing heavily on my chest. "We can't keep doing this if it puts us at risk." He took a step closer, lowering his voice even more. "What if we just spent the night together? Just to be free for once?" The idea sent shivers down my spine, both thrilling and terrifying at once. "What if someone sees us?" "We'll be careful," he insisted gently. "It's just one night." After a moment's hesitation, curiosity won over caution. We made our way back to his room under the cover of darkness, hearts pounding with excitement and fear intertwined. Once inside, the door clicked shut behind us like sealing fate itself. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp casting soft shadows across the walls. It felt intimate yet charged with uncertainty. We shared stories and laughter that night, moments that felt stolen from reality itself, as we let go of all constraints for just a few hours. Time slipped away until dawn began creeping in through the curtains. Then came an unexpected knock at the door that shattered our fragile bubble of secrecy into pieces. Panic surged through me as we froze in place. Who could it be? My heart raced as he glanced at me wide-eyed. "Answer it," I whispered urgently. He shook his head slowly, fear evident in his eyes. The knock came again, firm this time, and I could hear muffled voices outside discussing whether they should enter or wait longer. "We need to hide," he urged quietly as we scrambled for cover behind furniture in an attempt to remain unseen. The door creaked open slightly before someone called out cautiously from outside. "Is anyone in there?" It was one of our colleagues checking up on him after noticing he hadn't returned for quite some time. My breath caught in my throat while we held still. Every second felt like an eternity as they waited outside for an answer that would never come from us now hiding away in silence together amidst this precarious situation unraveling around us. The door remained ajar, the voice outside lingering in the air. My heart raced as I exchanged a glance with him. "We should say something," he whispered, urgency lacing his tone. But the words stuck in my throat. "Just a minute," I finally called out, trying to sound casual. The voice outside hesitated before retreating down the hallway. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by panic. I needed to figure out what to do next. "We can't stay here," I said, my mind racing through the possibilities. "What if someone sees us?" He nodded, concern etched on his face. We discussed our options quietly. Each suggestion felt like a step further into a maze of complications. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table beside us. It was a voicemail from my husband, his voice tinged with worry as he asked where I was and why I hadn't returned yet. My stomach twisted at the thought of him waiting for me back home, unaware of my betrayal. "I need to call him back," I said, panic creeping into my voice. "He's going to start worrying." The boss's son reached for my hand and squeezed it gently, grounding me for a moment. "Just tell him you're busy with work stuff," he suggested. As we debated what to do next, we noticed something glimmering on the floor near the bed, a bracelet that had slipped off my wrist during our earlier moments together. It sparkled in the dim light, a stark reminder of our reckless decisions. "I can't leave this here," I said quickly, picking it up and slipping it into my pocket. If someone finds it, the implications hung heavy between us. Suddenly, laughter erupted from outside as colleagues gathered for an impromptu group meeting about an upcoming boat trip around the island. The idea sent chills down my spine. Everyone would be included, and we couldn't risk being seen together in daylight. "We have to figure this out fast," he urged as we both stood up and began pacing around the small room. "What if they want us all on that boat? We can't be together there." I nodded in agreement but felt torn between wanting to escape this situation and fearing what would happen if we didn't confront it head-on. We need to act normal, I replied firmly, trying to regain some control over the spiraling chaos around us. As we prepared to leave the room, another colleague walked by and glanced at us suspiciously before continuing on their way. My heart raced again. It felt like every decision carried weighty consequences now more than ever. Stepping into the hallway felt like stepping onto a tightrope. One misstep could send everything crashing down around me. The group had gathered at the outdoor dining area under twinkling lights strung between trees swaying gently in the breeze. "Hey! There you are," someone called out cheerfully as they spotted us approaching from opposite ends of the space. It was one of our coworkers who had been part of our earlier conversations about corporate strategies and team-building exercises. "Yeah. Just getting some fresh air," I managed to reply while forcing a smile that felt too tight on my lips. The boss's son joined me at my side as we made small talk with others nearby while keeping an eye on how many people were present. Everyone seemed oblivious to what had unfolded just moments ago behind closed doors. As laughter filled the air and drinks were passed around among colleagues sharing stories under those twinkling lights above us, I couldn't shake off that feeling of dread settling deep within me like an anchor weighing me down further into uncertainty about everything unfolding around us. Then came another unexpected twist. A couple nearby began talking loudly about their own secret relationship that had developed during past retreats, oblivious to how closely their words mirrored our own situation. "I never thought we'd get caught," one laughed while their partner playfully nudged them with an elbow. A chill ran down my spine as realization hit. If they could openly discuss their affair without fear of consequences. I glanced sideways at him, his expression mirrored mine. A mix of intrigue and fear mingled together as we processed what this meant for us moving forward amidst all these other secrets swirling around in this retreat setting where nothing was quite what it seemed anymore. Just then, someone mentioned plans for an early morning boat trip tomorrow. Everyone would be expected aboard bright and early before breakfast started serving up fresh pastries from local bakeries nearby known for their flaky croissants filled with rich chocolate or almond cream filling. My stomach churned again at this news. Suddenly everything seemed more complicated than ever before with no clear way out except confronting whatever lay ahead directly. Even if that meant risking exposure or facing truths neither one of us wanted revealed just yet while navigating through these murky waters surrounding our tangled emotions intertwined together like vines growing wild along pathways leading away from safety towards uncharted territory filled only with uncertainty now looming larger than life itself. I stood at the edge of the dining area, watching as everyone buzzed with excitement about the boat trip. The thought of being out on the water filled me with dread. I felt the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. Should I continue this affair, or was it time to walk away? The looming storm clouds mirrored my inner turmoil. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the boss's son. He was laughing with a group of colleagues, but his eyes searched for me. I felt a pull towards him that was hard to resist. Just then, a colleague approached me, her expression curious and slightly suspicious. "You okay, Lily? You seem a bit off," she said, tilting her head slightly. "I'm fine, just tired," I replied quickly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. After she walked away, I made my way to a quieter corner of the lodge. The intimacy we had shared felt like a double-edged sword now. It brought me joy but also fear of being discovered. My heart raced as memories flooded back, our stolen moments together and how close we had come to getting caught in the act last night when someone knocked on the door unexpectedly. During lunch, whispers floated around about another couple's affair among our colleagues. I overheard snippets of conversations that sent chills down my spine. "Did you hear about them?" one woman said to another with a knowing look. My stomach twisted at the realization that secrets were not just mine alone, they were woven into the fabric of our group. Feeling trapped in this web of deceit, I glanced outside. The storm clouds had thickened ominously on the horizon. It seemed fitting for my state of mind, dark and unpredictable. As lunch wrapped up, I noticed that everyone was buzzing about the boat trip again, unaware of the brewing chaos within me. Before long, we all gathered by the dock where boats bobbed gently against their moorings. My heart raced as I spotted him again, his smile brightening despite the tension in the air around us. He walked over and whispered softly, "We need to talk later." The urgency in his voice sent shivers down my spine. As we boarded one of the boats, I tried to push aside my fears and focus on what lay ahead, the open water and perhaps one last adventure together before everything unraveled completely. But as we set off into the choppy waves, one thing became clear: this storm wasn't just outside, it was brewing within our hearts too. The wind whipped through my hair as we sailed further from shore. Laughter mingled with nervous chatter among our colleagues filled the air, momentarily distracting me from my thoughts. Yet every wave that crashed against our boat reminded me of how fragile this situation was becoming. Suddenly, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, an unexpected text from my husband demanding answers about where I was and why I'd been so distant lately. Panic surged through me as I read his words over and over again. I need to know what's going on. Just then, lightning flashed across the sky, followed by an ear-splitting crack of thunder that echoed ominously around us, a reminder that storms can come from anywhere at any time without warning or mercy for those unprepared for their fury. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly beside me, concern etched across his face as he noticed my sudden change in demeanor. "Just family stuff," I managed to say while trying not to give away too much. After all, secrets had become our currency during this retreat filled with hidden desires and risks taken under cover of darkness. As we sailed onward into uncertain waters, both literally and metaphorically, I couldn't shake off an overwhelming sense that something had shifted irrevocably between us all. Perhaps even fate itself had decided it was time for reckoning amidst these hidden shores where truths waited patiently like predators lurking just beneath calm surfaces ready to strike when least expected. The storm's winds howled outside, rattling the windows as I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone. My husband's text flashed ominously across the screen. "Where are you? I need to know." My heart raced. The weight of my choices pressed down on me like a heavy fog. "I'll be back soon," I typed, hesitating before hitting send. The retreat was extended due to the weather, and I felt trapped in this isolated lodge with secrets swirling around me. The boss's son had shared his family drama earlier, revealing a fractured relationship with his father that mirrored my own struggles at home. His words echoed in my mind, intertwining with the growing tension between us. "Let's go for a walk," he suggested, breaking into my thoughts as he entered the room. My pulse quickened at the thought of being alone with him again. "I need to clear my head." "Okay," I replied, forcing a smile despite the turmoil inside me. We stepped outside into the damp air, rain lightly falling around us as we walked along the winding path leading to the beach cove. The ocean roared in the distance, matching the chaos within me. As we reached a secluded spot on the shore, he turned to me with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "I don't want this to end," he confessed, his eyes searching mine for answers. The weight of his admission hung between us, heavy and electric. "I'm not sure what we're doing," I whispered back, feeling both exhilarated and terrified by our connection. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, another message from my husband demanding answers about my whereabouts. Panic surged through me as I glanced back at the retreat center looming behind us like a prison. "I can't keep lying," I said abruptly. His expression shifted from desperation to understanding. "What if we just take things one day at a time?" Before I could respond, a group of colleagues appeared on the trail ahead, their laughter cutting through our moment like a knife. We quickly stepped apart, pretending we were merely enjoying the scenery as they passed by. "See you later," he asked quietly before slipping away into the crowd. I returned to my room feeling torn between two worlds, each one pulling at me with equal force. The farewell party was planned for that evening. It felt like an ending and a beginning all at once. As I prepared for it, dread settled in my stomach, How could I act normal when everything felt so wrong? The party started off light-hearted enough, and music played softly in the background while colleagues mingled under twinkling lights strung overhead in the outdoor dining area. Yet beneath it all lay an undercurrent of tension that made me uneasy. Just as I began to relax slightly amidst familiar faces and laughter, I overheard snippets of conversation about affairs among other couples within our company, a reminder that secrets were not mine alone to bear. "Did you hear about Mark and Lisa?" one colleague whispered conspiratorially. "Everyone knows. It's just a matter of time before someone gets caught," another replied. My heart sank further into despair as memories flooded back, my own husband's infidelities echoing through my mind like ghosts refusing to be silenced. In that moment of clarity amidst chaos, I realized how deeply intertwined our lives had become. Betrayal was no longer just an abstract concept but rather an ugly reality creeping closer every day. Suddenly, amidst all this noise and distraction came another text from my husband, "I'll be there soon." A chill ran down my spine at his words. Would he confront me? Would he expose everything? As if sensing my distress from afar, the boss approached me with concern etched across his features. "You've seemed distant lately," he said softly but firmly. "I'm just tired," I replied quickly while trying to maintain composure under his scrutinizing gaze. He nodded but didn't seem convinced before moving away again into the throng of guests celebrating around us. With each passing minute leading up to dinner's conclusion felt like ticking clockwork, counting down toward inevitable confrontation or revelation. I didn't know which would come first or how much longer I could keep up appearances without losing myself completely in this tangled web we had spun together on these secret shores. As the dinner wound down, I could feel the weight of scrutiny pressing on my shoulders. The laughter and chatter around me felt distant, a mere backdrop to the chaos swirling in my mind. I scanned the room, searching for a glimpse of him, but the crowd shifted like waves, obscuring my view. "Where have you been?" A voice broke through my thoughts. It was my husband, standing just behind me with a tight expression. His eyes were sharp, searching mine for something unspoken. "You've been gone too long." I started to explain but faltered. My heart raced as I recalled the stolen moments shared with the boss's son, each one now a reminder of what I stood to lose. The atmosphere shifted suddenly as the boss rose to make a toast. His voice boomed over the crowd, and everyone turned their attention toward him. "To our team. And to new beginnings," he declared, raising his glass high. I felt a pang of guilt twist in my stomach. Our new beginnings felt tainted by secrets. When the toast ended, I slipped away from my husband's side under the pretense of needing fresh air. The outdoor dining area was quieter now, with only a few stragglers lingering beneath twinkling lights. My breath caught when I spotted him leaning against a weathered wooden beam by the edge of the patio. "Lily," he said softly as I approached, his eyes lighting up momentarily before clouding with concern. "We need to talk." "Not here," I replied urgently, glancing back toward where my husband stood in conversation with colleagues. "I can't risk being seen." He nodded but moved closer anyway, lowering his voice. "I overheard something. They're planning to check rooms tonight." My heart sank at his words. An unexpected wave of anxiety washed over me. "Check rooms? Why?" "Someone mentioned wanting to make sure no one was breaking any rules," he explained quickly. "We need to be careful." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from my husband demanding answers about where I had disappeared again. The tension rose. It felt like a noose tightening around me. "I have to go back," I whispered urgently before turning away from him reluctantly. "I don't want this to end," he called after me, desperation lacing his tone. I paused for just a moment before continuing on, torn between what was right and what felt exhilaratingly wrong. Returning inside felt like stepping into a different world, one filled with smiles that didn't reach my eyes and laughter that echoed hollowly in my ears. As I rejoined my husband and colleagues at the table, unease settled heavily in my chest. The night wore on until we reached dessert, a beautiful chocolate mousse that looked indulgent but tasted bittersweet on my tongue as guilt gnawed at me from within. Then came another unexpected twist. Someone knocked on the door leading outside where we had just been talking moments ago. The sound echoed ominously through the room as all eyes turned toward it. "Who could that be?" someone asked curiously. My stomach dropped when I recognized one of our colleagues who had always seemed overly inquisitive about others' lives, someone who relished juicy gossip more than anything else. "Just checking if everyone is all right," she chirped brightly as she entered, her gaze sweeping across us all with an unsettling intensity. I forced myself to smile while internally panicking about how close we were to being exposed, my secret life hanging by a thread as fragile as spun sugar. In that moment of chaos and confusion, another notification pinged from my phone, a picture sent by an unknown number showing us together on those secret shores during our last escape from reality. It wasn't just any photo. It was clear evidence of our connection that could unravel everything if seen by anyone else. I glanced at it quickly before shutting off my phone entirely. Fear gripped me tightly as reality sank in. I couldn't hide this forever. As we finished dessert and prepared for whatever would come next, whether it be confrontations or revelations, I knew one thing: everything was about to change irreparably for all involved. The boss's voice rang out again over clinking glasses and fading laughter. "Let's wrap up this retreat." But before he could finish his sentence or raise another toast, his gaze locked onto mine across the table, an unspoken challenge lingering between us as if he sensed something deeper than mere distance separating us now.